In the news yesterday, Ripple just announced there's another partnership that they just entered into. Yet another new customer that's going to be using RippleNet. And this one could actually be a bit of a game changer because this one is in a new part of the world that RippleNet has not necessarily been exposed to yet. It's some pretty bullish news. I'm going to tell you about it in this video. And earlier today, head of the SEC, our favorite regulator, Gary Gensler, was in front of the Oversight Committee, the oversight of the SEC, and he was being asked questions. I'm going to tell you about what he just said and what he specifically said about Bitcoin and Ethereum, some of his answers that weren't exactly answers, and what this could mean for the rest of his time as head of the SEC. Also, just this morning, Patrick McHenry, who was one of the ones questioning Gary Gensler, submitted a new proposal for a bill, and this one could actually be a game changer. I'm going to tell you what Gary Gensler actually said about it. And in other crypto news, Bitcoin did pass $50,000 very early this morning. In fact, right now it is creeping up close to 51,000. And it pretty much smashed through 50,000 and it's going through its next level of resistance. So as we move into the Q4 here, it's looking more and more like this bull run on the second half of the year is actually going to be happening. And finally, the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve sent out a notice yesterday specifically talking about ISO 20022, which Ripple is a part of. It's a cross-border payments and settlement standardization model. I'm going to tell you about what they just said and why it's very bullish for Ripple. Hey everyone, my name is Randy and welcome back to the Late Night Grind. And right now on this channel, I am covering the Ripple versus the SEC case, as well as other cryptocurrency news, investment markets, and personal finance. So if any of those topics interest you and you want to follow along, make sure you do two things. Hit subscribe and also hit that bell notification icon so YouTube will notify you when I release a new video. And of course, if you're feeling really generous today, I'd really appreciate it if you do two things. Number one, smash that thumbs up button. And number two, watch the video all the way to the end. Those really are the two best things that you can do when you want to support a YouTube channel. So with that, let's jump into it. So the first thing I'm going to cover is actually Gary Gensler's answers to some congressmen, to some representatives that happened earlier today. So there was an oversight committee meeting specifically for the SEC. And I didn't see the entire thing, but I did see some very specific questions and answers from Gary Gensler. Had me a little bit concerned. And number one is somebody was asking about, once again, clarity in the crypto space. And Gary pretty much gave the same answer that he usually does, in which he said, well, listen, between the CFTC and the SEC, we have the space pretty much in hand. But then on the other hand, on a different answer, he basically just said, well, this space is unregulated and we really need to bring this under the regulation of the SEC so that, quote unquote, people don't get hurt. It's interesting that 23,000, actually, John Deaton said now up to 25,000 XRP holders are trying to go after the SEC. Hurt people? Yeah, the SEC hurt people. Another question, he was asked about Bitcoin, Ethereum, and their clarity of whether or not they were securities. And this is the interesting part. He didn't even answer that question. He wouldn't even take on the ones that were previously, based on a personal opinion, given clarity and said that they were not securities. Bitcoin and Ethereum. So what that tells me is that they're watching this case versus Ripple, and they know that they are absolutely getting torched. And if he were to say that Bitcoin and Ethereum were securities, that would rile up even more questions and put him under even more scrutiny. Representative Patrick McHenry, who is from North Carolina, was actually asking him, he said, I submitted a bill this morning that's largely based on Hester Peirce's safe harbor proposal that was given to Gary Gensler a few weeks ago. And he asked him if he had a chance to read it. Gary Gensler didn't even want to answer that question. He was basically avoiding all questions about any proposals or new bills. He was pretty much just reciting the same thing he does over and over again. If you're an NFL fan, you kind of know this is the case when reporters ask NFL head coaches questions about the game and they give the same bland non-answer every single week, week in and week out. That's who Gary Gensler is essentially turning into. So from my perspective, it looks like Gary Gensler could be one of the most unproductive SEC commissioners that we've seen. Now, why? To me, it just looks like he doesn't want to say anything incriminating because they know that Ripple is destroying them in their case. And they know if they lose that case and or if Gary says anything specific about specific tokens, about specific clarity for specific security issues, that he might be giving up their power and their leverage over any future cases against crypto companies. So to me, it just looks like he's holding that seat and just holding it in order to not screw it up. I think he was actually put in that place specifically because of his past experience as an MIT professor teaching blockchain technologies, but not necessarily as a professional regulator, or at least a leader in the regulation space. Because every time he gets a question, he just looks like a deer caught in the headlights. And now some other interesting news regarding the ISO 20022, and that's actually how it's pronounced, at least according to their website, which is basically a system, a standardized system of payment, remittance, and settlement that they're trying to globalize through all banks throughout the world. And Ripple is a part of this. So there's been a lot of speculation about what Ripple and XRP's part in this standardization will actually be. Right now, as it stands, Ripple is on the committee board, and they're pretty much the only distributed ledger technology company that is represented. That's extremely bullish for Ripple. So they actually put out a letter yesterday explaining that they're giving people 90 days to comment on making ISO 20022 a singular one-day event, whereas rather than a phased approach, they would make all banks around the world be compliant with ISO 20022 in one day. So there would essentially be a switch that would then be flipped. Again, this seems very bullish for Ripple. But in looking through some documentation, it's very, very unclear as to what RippleNet plays, as to how RippleNet may or may not play a role in this. XRP is not even mentioned in most of the white papers, except for the ones that you dig up on Reddit, and most of those are made up by users. But on Ripple's own website, they do say that their goal of being on that board is to help shape the formulas and the standards through which the ISO 20022 standardization actually works. Now, this is bullish for Ripple, in my opinion, because if there's no other distributed ledger technology companies out there, and it's a great place for other banks, especially global banks, to see what RippleNet is and could actually provide to those banks. Just being on that board alone is an extremely great marketing plan for Ripple to generate new leads and bring on new customers globally. So the faster that ISO 20022 can actually be implemented, which in my opinion will probably be sometime next year, the more banks will be exposed to RippleNet, regardless if XRP is actually used in that standardized process. And now finally, Ripple bringing on a new client that is in a new part of the world that previously they hadn't had. Now, I've seen some other people say that this is actually kind of a game changer, one of the more game-changing partners that they've actually signed on with. And from the press release that I read, both Ripple and QNB, who is their new partner, signed on to this. So what is it and what are they going to do? Well, QNB is actually the Middle East and Africa's largest financial services company. And basically what their plan is that they just unveiled is that they're going to be using RippleNet specifically in Turkey to start, but basically expanding that into the rest of the Middle East and Africa into new remittance channels. Now, QNB is in and itself is a very large company. They actually represent 31 different countries and service well over 20 million customers through all its subsidiaries. So this is a very key partner that was just set up, and it just seems like it's one of a list among the many that have been signing on with RippleNet. Seems like almost weekly now there's a new report of a new customer coming on board. That's very bullish news for Ripple. Pretty much everything I've been covering for the last couple of months seems very bullish for Ripple. Right now, the price trading at $1.07, and some people seem to think that it really doesn't matter what the price is right now. If you buy it at 99 cents, if you buy it at $1.10, if you buy it at $1.50, that all of those prices are going to be extremely low compared to the trading price that XRP actually reaches when A, the rest of this bull run finalizes for the rest of the market cycle, and they beat the SEC and get clarity. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you think that A, Gary Gensler is going to be pretty much just a placeholder and nothing's actually going to get done, or if you think that this case versus Ripple is going to be the groundbreaking decision that could really shape what the SEC has to attempt to do during the rest of Gary Gensler's time. Also, let me know what other projects, what other coins you're going to be looking at for the rest of this bull run. But let me know in the comment section below what you are bullish on. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching all the way to the end of the video and for giving it a big thumbs up. And as always, I'll see you guys on the next video.